Yeah, it takes more than just one try. Oh, let me mute that. How's your day going? I don't know if you're able to hear me or not. Oh, good, you can hear me. Yeah, my day's okay. I managed to get this thing really off center, so need to redo it. I decided to make some little vases today, so we'll see how it goes. I'm trying to do some vases for dried flowers, but we'll see. Every time you take a break from working on this, it's like you gotta get back into the flow of it, so. This might be a throwaway, which is fine. Yeah, I'm gonna put some of the vases around the house, and then I have a couple people that have asked for vases, so try to give those as gifts. They're nice to have on hand, just as little gifts for people too. So that's my goal. Yeah, I think this is not going to be a keeper, but that's okay. Wasn't totally centered. That's okay. Can still work on some forms, which is good. Yeah, I I always have a little bit of a warm up, it seems like. That's exactly it. It's a good way to kind of practice the shape I want for sure. I'm going to try to close this off in a little bit and make it have kind of a round bottom and a little bit of a tapered neck. Okay, so since I'm not going to keep this, I'm not too worried about the inside on the bottom. You can't, I don't know if you can see in there, you can't, but there's like a little raised thing in there that I don't want, but that's okay. We'll just practice the shape here. So what I want to do is have it go out at the bottom, and then it'll start to slowly come up and have like a tapered neck. So I'm going to start to collar that in. And basically close it. And then after you've closed it, start to bring it up. Like that. And then kind of becomes like a little bud vase where you can put one or two flowers in it, you know. Oh no, I knew that was gonna happen. That's okay. Oops, that went all the way in the water. That is not what I intended to happen. Oh no. Well, that's not coming out. Hey, Chris. Was saying I'm trying to make a bud vase for dried flowers. This is actually just going to be one that I throw away, I think. Wasn't as centered as I wanted it to be, so I was just practicing the form for this kind of practice round, and then I'll do another one in a minute. But getting the neck on it is probably the hardest part, so getting extra practice doing that is always good. I decided to start streaming these every week as a way to hopefully give myself some fun things to do over the winter since it gets dark so early here. So this is the first week, and hopefully I can keep it up at about the same time. So this little, I call it a chamois. I don't even know if that's what the real word is, but this like makes the top smooth so that when you fire it, it doesn't, the edges aren't all sharp. So anyway, when I do another one, it'll look similar to this. Even when I don't keep pieces, I like to finish them off to make sure that they, like, it's a good habit to get into, to try to polish your pieces even if you're not going to keep them, I think, personally, just because it gives you good practice. But this one is super bottom heavy. I actually was able to recenter it, but I don't think the bottom of it has very much integrity, so I'm worried about trying to keep it. But that's okay. And then I always mirror the bottom of the vase to the top a little bit. So I look at the top of it and see like what shape is that making, and then kind of decide from there what I think the bottom should look like. So in my mind, looking at this, it's got like kind of two distinct shapes to it. It's got like this really round bottom and then a tapering narrow top. It doesn't just like go straight in and up. So I think I'm gonna make the bottom a little bit more round too, just to kind of mirror that a little bit. I think that'll give it a nice profile. So I'm just using this tool to kind of cut into it and do that. It's cold down here in this basement. I feel like it's making my nose all funny. Cool. So that's a fun little shape. Super bottom heavy, so I'm not gonna keep it. The top looks okay, but not perfect. There's like indents on the top, which would probably be sharp if we fired it. So anyway, since I'm not gonna keep it and it was meant for a practice round, anyway, I'm going to cut into it to see what the bottom looks like, which is also just a good habit to get into. So, take my wire tool, maybe, Oh, thanks. Yeah, I like when they kind of taper in like that. It, to me, looks kind of whimsical. We were in Denmark and saw a bunch of vases like this all over, like tiny little bud vases, and I just fell in love with them. So when we came back, I was like, I bet I could make that. So, can look in here. Let's see. So, I'm glad I did not keep this because you can see, can you see? Yes. So the bottom is super thin and then the side is very thick. And then this, even though it's tapering up, should still be about the same thickness as the sides. So anyway, since it didn't get centered all the way, that's fine. But it's not uneven, so that's pretty cool. I went too far on the bottom. But that's a pretty good start. And can use another piece of clay to actually try to do this. It was a tiny piece of clay as well, so that works out. Oh no. Trying to be good about keeping things separated and clean, but it's hard. Prince, you're normally streaming at this time too, right? I think I saw a thing saying you weren't streaming this week, but you were gonna stream again soon? Okay. So, trying to decide if I really want to try to use this whole piece or not, because this is probably enough for a decent sized bowl, which I don't know that I want to do. Ooh, but I could make a planter with this. That would be fun. I haven't tried my hand at that in a while. Oh, yeah, I get you, Prince. Streaming is, I don't know. I don't know. I find it kind of hard. Like, there's setup involved still, you know, which that you have to do stuff before you can even start. So I was late today. I set a schedule to stream every Tuesday at 5 Eastern, but I started setting up at like 4:45, and still at like 5:30 I was like, come on, Marissa, get this set up. So I hear ya about feeling overwhelmed. I hope that it gets better. Okay, I'm gonna try to do a planter because this is a big old hunk of clay. And I love making planters. I don't know if you've noticed a theme here. The theme is flowers. But seriously, I do a lot of vases and flowers or pots and stuff like that. So planters are always good gifts because people can put real plants in them or fake plants in them, and they look kind of cool. So maybe I'll try that next. So since I'm trying to go for like a kind of a planter shape, what I start off with is not really a ball. It's like a little rectangle that's got a tiny bit of height to it just to help me out. And then, oh, it's been a while since I've done one of these. I hope I can remember how to do it. Did it before, I can do it again. I hate it when that happens. Sometimes this happens. The bat is very slick, and if you don't slam it down hard enough, it will do that. Oh, thanks, Prince. I feel like doing ceramics is so good for me because it just doesn't work all of the time, which is good for me because it's like that makes me super nervous. So forcing myself to do something that doesn't always work out is good. Okay, this clay's a tiny bit wet, but I think it's okay. This is going to make a big noise, just so you know. I'm gonna slam this down really hard. Woo! That should work. That should stick. It is soft. The clay is soft, but it's got a lot of water in it, so it's like dense. But it is quite soft to work with. Like if you get to, as you add more water, it gets softer and softer. So right now, I'm just trying to center this. And since this is a larger piece of clay, I'm gonna cone it up as a way to get all of the clay into a center mass. And you can't really see this, but it's actually centering itself as it goes up, and then I recenter it as I push it back down. So this helps you to be able to see if there's spots in the clay that need to be centered a little better. So, okay. You know, the clay is quite heavy though. Like it resists being pushed down and stuff, so gotta kind of brace yourself. And then, so since I'm making a planter, I don't know if you noticed, but the first time I did this, I kind of, when I did that little vase, because I wanted the vase to be much more squat, I pushed it down a lot harder to center it. But since this vase is going to have a little bit of height, because it's going to be a planter, I don't want to push it down as much, because I want to keep a little bit of height on it as I get started. Because that way I won't have to pull it back up, you know? So, this feels centered. So, can start. It was a solid thunk. I had to like slam it down on there. Okay. So now we're going to open it up, which I did before as well, but this is a little bit more centered, so hopefully it'll keep its shape a little bit better. And when you do this, a lot of times it does kind of get a little wobbly, but it's easy to fix at this stage. And anytime I feel my fingers start to drag, I add more water. Because if my fingers drag, then it's gonna move the clay, like it's gonna pull the clay, which will pull it off center. So, I'm just trying to get this to open up a little more. And last time the bottom was super thin, so we're not going to go down as far. And since I do intend to keep this I am going to check the bottom before I open this up and see how thick the bottom is. So we use that needle tool, go straight in the middle. The bottom's about that thick. That's too thick. We want it about there. So I'm gonna keep going. I hope it's a great planter. We'll see. I made planters like this for like 6 weeks last year. Was that last year? Yes, I don't even know what year we're in. And it was really fun. I got to be very fast at them. But when you don't practice, sometimes you forget how to do it. Okay, I'm gonna leave that a little bit thick because I want to make sure that I'm doing this right. Okay, so how did I do this last time? I need to pull it out. I know that, like a bowl. So, I'm going to start pulling and widen this out. And I also know that when I do these planters, they have like an attached bottom to them, so like an attached saucer. So I want to be sure to leave enough clay that I can do that on the bottom as well. So, all right. Start pulling this out, and this part's not as hard because you're just basically adding a little bit of pressure and then pulling toward yourself a little to widen out the bowl. Okay. I am happy with that. Oh, now I remember. Okay, see, just got to get back in practice of it. So I do what my teacher always called a 5 o'clock fix, which is making sure the rim is even. So you pretend like it's 5 o'clock, like this is the clock, your finger points toward 5 o'clock. I don't know, it makes sense. I don't know that I pointed at the right side, but it works. So anyway, what I'm trying to do is even out the rim. So, and you should do that at each stage to make sure that you're not off center and that you're not making that you're restabilizing the rim, because it can get really wobbly. So, okay. So now what I'm going to do is decide the shape of this thing. So I want, so, you know, you can make a planter any shape you want. I think I want to make mine go out like this. I've made them where they kind of go like this and up, almost like a Grecian shape. You can go just straight out, kind of traditional and a little boxy. And I think that's the way I want to go. I think I can get some good height. So I remember now, because I want to have a saucer at the bottom. So you see where this like clay ring is? I want that to be a saucer eventually, technically. You'll see what I mean when I get there. So I want to start here, not all the way at the bottom. And now we're going to start to raise this thing up. And this is really a matter of moving up slowly in conjunction. Your hands have to work together. And you brace your arm against your knee so that you don't wobble around. starting to look like a thing that you could plant another thing in. Okay. And sometimes as you're going, as you're doing this and like getting more height to the bowl, sometimes you'll get little bumps in there or feel little bumps of clay. And it's kind of neat because if you just reverse the direction that you go, so start at the top and go down, you can work out some of that unevenness. It's a fun little trick. I don't know why it works, but it does, which is all that really matters. So right now that's what I'm doing, is just trying to even out the bumps. Okay, there is one bump in there, and I'm gonna see if I can get it. Yeah, watching it kind of get more height is really fun. I also enjoy that. So that's all smooth. This is smooth. Here is the bump. That's not perfect, but that helped. Okay, so then we'll do our 5 o'clock fix. And that might also help get rid of the bump. Yeah, physics help. That's why, doing a shape like this is actually one of the easiest shapes, because the wheel is trying to push the clay way that way, right? So it's pretty easy to make it go up into this shape, honestly, because the clay wants to do it because the wheel is pushing it. So it's harder to make a cylinder or to try to go straight up because the wheel wants you to go out. Okay, so I think this is good for height. This is a tiny planter, but that's okay. Be good for a little ivy or something. So now what I want to do is add a saucer. And I have to remind myself how I do this. So give me a second. Because I've left clay at the bottom, and now I need to push in to create an indent here. So now there's an indent, perfect. And then I can go up one more time with this kind of indent that I've created. Do the 5 o'clock fix here. Sometimes getting these rims to work is just a game of patience. Like, it looks like it's not going to work, and then you have to just really believe that it will. Okay, so now that I've done this, I am going to make the little saucer thing. If I remember correctly, I need to cut in and lift this up. Ugh, too fast, too fast. Slow down. There we go. It's happening. Okay. Sweet. Nice. Okay. I'm gonna see if I can do this one more time. Cool. And then I will kind of make these edges a bit more smooth. There's a lot of water on this, so maybe I'll use this. Okay, so I've kind of made that a little bit flat on the side, and then come in here and just be patient. And kind of slowly shape the saucer the way that I want it to be shaped. So, if you can see, it has this little foot here. And so what we'll do is let this dry, and then I'll show this next time probably, but you use this little tool here, this little hole puncher, and you punch two little holes, one there and one on the other side, and then you've got little drainage holes for your planter. And it's all one piece, so you don't have to worry about losing the saucer or not having a saucer, and that way it catches the water. So yeah, so that's why I like to make them like that. They feel very like all-in-one type of thing. So this is pretty good. Looks fairly centered. I'm not super happy about the edges, but the only problem with clay, well, there's two kind of things that are true, is that the first is that clay has a memory. So like some types of clay has more memory than others. But what that means is that the shape that it was in originally is kind of the shape that it wants to be in. It has trouble, it doesn't want to change form. And if you change it once, it's like, oh fine, and then if you try to change it again, it gets really stubborn. So trying to make a saucer kind of makes you have to change the shape twice. And then the other thing is that you have to add water to clay in order to make it malleable, but also too much water and it's just mud. So it requires you to kind of like toe the line of what will work and what won't. So this is it. Oh, I put it right out of the picture. But yeah, so you can hopefully see that there's this little saucer at the bottom that's connected, and then this is the planter itself. I'm gonna let this sit over there for a second on a shelf to dry off a little because it is very wet, and if I try to detach it from the bat right now, I think that I would probably mess it up. So I have another bat that I can use, and I will let this dry a little bit before I cut it. And now, because I've got a couple smaller pieces, I can probably try to do that vase that I was originally thinking about. So I have pants with little sailboats on them, so don't judge me. They're very comfortable. Okay. Oh, I need the other bat. That would be helpful, huh? Okay. Yeah, we got something, which is amazing. So I gotta get the plastic off of this thing. I wasn't intending on using this today. And there's a sticker. Okay. There we go. Make sure this is all flattened out. This helps the bat stick to the wheel so that it doesn't wobble. There we go. All right. So it's weird because every time you add new clay, you actually want to wet it down and then dry it off. Probably you don't need to do that with these bats, right? It feels like it would all be the same. I don't know. That's what I've learned. It's almost more like a routine. It's like a ritual of how I start. Who knows if I need to do it? Okay, so this piece, I need a scale because I have no idea what size this piece of clay is. I think this feels good for a little bud vase. I don't know why it feels good, but it does. The rest is the other, it was too much. But this feels right. So, I'm gonna moosh this into a ball. I have this like long-term goal of being able to make all of the dinnerware in my house. So this is typically how I take on projects, which is terrible, but I'm like, I'm gonna pick a big goal that is hard to accomplish and work toward that. So anyway, I've slowly started to remake all the bowls in our house. And next I have to move on to mugs. So, 20 years it'll all be done. So I'm keeping this one as a ball because I'm gonna actually try to kind of copy the vase that I did originally and just be a little bit better about how I do the bottom. So, start there. And make sure this one doesn't immediately come off of the bat. Also very helpful. Cool. Okay. I'm going to kind of center this a little bit lower. Sorry, I just noticed my hair gets like totally in the way. My setup is currently not super ideal, but you work with what you've got. You also have to pull away from it really slowly, or else it will get off center just by you not touching it anymore, which is not super helpful. Okay. So I'm going to try and do a vase very similar to that little first throwaway vase I did. The difference in this vase is I'm going to try to make the neck slightly longer, I think, and a little bit more perpendicular. The other one had a bit of a taper to it, which was nice, but I don't know. I think I want that more striking contrast of the body being round and then the neck being thin and tall. I think that makes, I feel like that shows off one or two buds really, really well. And it still allows you to enjoy the shape of the vase, which is important. Okay. So what we're not going to do is go super low into the pot this time like we did before. So I need to watch that because it's not as much clay. So you get into this false sense of security like, oh, I know how far down I'm going, and then pretty soon you've gone too far. Much like with life. Okay. Where'd my needle tool go? Hello? There we go. Oh man, that's not, nope. Way too thick still. That's okay. It's better to check and keep going than to have gone too far, because there is a point of no return. Okay. This feels good. Let's see if I'm right. Still a little thick, but getting a lot closer. All right. That should do it. Let's try that. Okay, that's good to start. Okay, and now we're going to pull this out and make a little bowl shape again. So I am trying to keep the roundness on the top, if you can see that. If you remember the last thing that I did, I really pulled it kind of at an angle. Whereas this one, I'm trying to pull from the bottom out because I want to keep this shape. Because remember I said clay has memory. So what I am attempting to do is make it so that when I try to get it into that kind of round shape, it's a little bit easier. So that's my goal there, is to keep that shape a little bit. And I'm just evening out the bottom here. And then do my 5 o'clock fix. Get this back centered. All right, and now I am going to pull this out into a little bowl shape. To kind of start forming the bottom. Good to dry out the bottom as you go, because that will prevent cracking later on, which is good because it is absolutely tragic when you've put a lot of time and effort into something and it cracks at the last firing because it was too wet at the bottom. It is a terrible feeling, and one that I always try to avoid after having that happen. Now that I've got the shape, I think I'm going to pull this up a little bit because this is kind of the width I want and getting to the shape I want. So start pulling it up a little more. You gotta put the water with the clay, otherwise you just have a blob. The cool thing too about clay, like when we're doing it like this, is that it actually, when you glaze it and then fire it, it creates a new compound. Like ceramic is different than clay. It's like a new medium, which is pretty cool as well. I don't know, I think ceramics is just awesome, and there's so much to learn. It's like the hobby that keeps on giving, because there's just so many things to learn, from the clay work to the how to mix the metals to make the glazes, to how to fire and like the different types of firings you can do to produce different patterns. It's very cool. Okay, so let me take a look at this and see how I feel. I want it to be more bowl-ish, so I will make it more bowlish. There we go. Yeah, this is getting to the shape that I'm looking for here. And getting it to shape like this is just a matter of applying pressure appropriately. So, you know, when I want it to go out, I stabilize it with my outside hand, but push quite hard with my inside hand. and vice versa if I want it to go go up in a cylinder. Okay, so now I am going to try to collar this back in and raise it up that way. So I'm gonna start here. Oh yeah, getting overwhelmed with all the stuff you can actually do. I think I get that. Yeah, and like I haven't learned how to do, make any glazes. I've never fired something myself, because there is a lot, and it's a learning curve, you know? So I also feel like I do hobbies the way that I cook and bake, which is I pick something that I want to get perfect and I just practice it until I get good at that one thing. And that way it hopefully kind of narrows down my options. So like when I started with ceramics, all I wanted to do was be able to make a good cup. And like I practiced cups until I got it right. Okay, so this is coming together nicely. We've got to fix the outside here so that it doesn't have these striations, which I'll get to, but you can see that we've made the top a little bit come in a little bit more. And so now we're just gonna continue on that path. And keep closing it up. Yes, draw tons of corgis. You know what I thought would be cool? And I'm probably never gonna get to this, so do it. You know all the emojis? If we made all corgi emojis, I think it was Brittany and then Jason and Jason did a couple and I did a couple, or I did one, not a couple. But I thought that would be fun, and it's a good way to practice the corgi in like different expressions. I'm doing different stuff. So that might be fun. I don't know. Okay. There's this one little lump of clay here that I'm just kind of pushing up so that we get a little bit more substance to the neck here. These vases I think are very fun, but they are slow going. Like you can't, or at least I can't do them super fast. Okay. This is very nearly doing what I want. Okay, so I gotta fix the top a little bit, the rim. That's okay. All right, give it one more shot. Oh, I can see. Let me fix this. The lighting in here, I'm just learning things to improve. The lighting in here made it look like it's totally off center, which it is not. It looked like the whole thing was lopsided because of that kind of clay puddle. Okay, so let's see if I can even this out a bit. So I did, like I said, I did a bunch of these last year. And what I found was the rim has to have quite a bit of integrity or else it will crack in the kiln. So I want to be sure that I'm kind of building up the rim a little bit. So that it's thick enough to withstand the heat of the kiln. Okay. Yeah, like that, I think, is good. Okay, so now since we are keeping this, I need to smooth out the edges. Like you can see there's all these, well, I guess you can't see very well because of the reflection, but there's like ridges in here from me pulling it every which way. So I'm just going to use this plastic rib to smooth it out. And all this does is create a smooth surface, if you want a smooth surface, which I do. And this pot is a little bit wider, so you could put one or two little buds in that are a little bit wider as well, and still be able to see the vase, which is nice. I think it's a good shape. I like this shape. I'm happy. I'm just very lightly touching it to smooth it out. I don't want to actually move, I don't want to move the clay. I just want to use the existing moisture to smooth it out. There we go. Good. And now I will use this tool again to get the bottom to be the shape that I want. So. I'm really going all in on this kind of rounded squat shape. It's just fun. So I want to make sure that I commit to that as I'm kind of trimming it here. And it should really go in. Like that. Yeah. Cool. How do I feel about this? I feel like I want it to be a little like rounder. Like that. Yeah, perfect. Cool. So, there we go. That is a little bud vase. I always do another pass. Thanks. I always do another pass to make sure everything is smoothed out with this little slip sponge. When it's in this stage, this is really like your time to, with each stage you just want to make sure that you're polishing it and refining it, because you can't, like, you basically have two chances to really refine it. So you have this stage and then the trimming stage, and this trimming stage you actually shouldn't mess with the top of the pot. So like you're fixing the bottom and making the bottom look really good. So you know what you finish with today is what you're going to get as a finished product as well. So it's important to like make sure that you're happy with what it looks like at this point in time, or else because you won't be able to fix it later. And it does require patience. I also have noticed on days when I'm super stressed, it's hard to throw pottery because your breathing gets totally off, or you hold your breath. And when you do that, it like messes with how the clay works, because you are clenching your hands or clenching your body, and so the clay like doesn't center right, and your hands don't work together because you're not breathing properly. So it's really interesting. Like it's a good way to kind of realize if you're calm and also work on calming yourself. So all I'm doing right now is smoothing stuff out. It's hard to see with the glare, but it's not all perfectly smooth, and I try to make it as uniformly smooth as I can. So, sorry, this part takes a minute. also makes me very dizzy. So I'm just watching this go by in slow motion and trying to not let it make me super dizzy. Okay. How do I feel about this? I like the shape. The rim is almost perfect. And by perfect, I mean even. It is never perfect, and that's not what we're going for. There we go. That smoothed it out. Okay. And then do one more pass with this. A little faster. Yep. Perfect. Cool. All right. So that is a little bud vase. That was very fun. So now we'll just use this wire cutter to separate it from the bat, and then I'm going to let it dry. That way it just doesn't stick to the bat. And I'll let it dry, and then we'll do another one where I trim it. So I think the last thing I need to do today is, that was a good thing it sticks, is trim or cut the little pot that I made off of the bat as well. So this is what this looks like right now. And you can see it's got this kind of nice little rounded shape. It's kind of a cute little vase. Like, it would smile at you if it had a face, I think, which is nice. Okay, so let me cut this other one off of the bat, and then that'll be it for today. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Oh yeah, that's a good idea, Prince. Yeah, I will take pictures of it as I go along. That's a good idea. Okay, cut that off the bat. Oh, I hate that part. It hurts because the wire, you need to get the wire really taut and it like digs into your skin. Ouch. That is my least favorite part. Okay, and our little pot that's gonna have a little attached saucer that I keep not showing in the picture. Hooray! So yeah, I'll show pictures of both of those, and this was fun. It takes me a minute to clean up my hands so that I can stop the stream, but I'll be doing this every Tuesday evening at around either 4:30 or 5 Pacific. So yeah, be a good way to go into the winter. So all right, I'll stop this in just 1 second, but it was nice talking to you all in the chat. I appreciate you joining me. All right, we will see you next Tuesday, everybody. Thank you, and have a good night. Bye.